While the world is full of public places where you're free to wander around, there are also several places that are strictly off-limits. Often guarded by high walls or 24/7 security, these areas will get you into big trouble if you ever try to visit. Without the necessary permission, that is. Join me for today's video as we take a look at 15 places that you can't go. Number 15. Sino-Ri. North Korea is easily the world's most recognizable dictatorship, and Sino-Ri is easily one of the regime's most important military establishments. That's because this base is said to be the location where dangerous weapons such as the Scud missile and the Nondong medium-range ballistic missiles were developed. And due to the fact that it's located underground, satellite imagery can only guess that it's likely a massive complex that contains everything from storage facilities to a military academy. However, due to the lack of public info on it, little is known about the facility, although the chances of you showing up and finding out more info are astronomically slim. Number 14. Whites. Unless you're planning on becoming extremely wealthy or influential, the chances of you gaining entry into Whites is slim to none. Founded in 1693, Whites is considered to be London's oldest gentlemen's club, and supposedly you need the recommendation of 35 current members in order to be considered for membership. Due to the fact that the Queen is the only woman to have ever been allowed inside, it's strictly a men's-only establishment, and while the inner workings of the club aren't that well known, it's believed that its bar is not closed for the past 200 years. As such, Whites truly is an exclusive establishment that serves its members well. Number 13. The Ise Grand Shrine. If you're a member of the Shinto religion, the chances are that you've heard of the Ise Grand Shrine. Located in Japan's Mie Prefecture, it's considered to be one of Shintoism's most holy sites, and it's dedicated to the sun goddess Amaterasu. In terms of its makeup, it's an expansive complex that encompasses several smaller shrines, and while inside is beautiful, no one except the Japanese imperial family is allowed to enter. Instead, onlookers are only permitted to stand outside the Grand Shrine's walls, where they can venerate the sun goddess from a distance. And while such an experience may seem underwhelming, most believers of Shintoism would likely disagree. And despite being closed off, the Ise Grand Shrine is visited by millions every single year. Number 12. Morgan Island. While an island colonized by monkeys may sound like something out of Planet of the Apes, the reality is such an island actually exists within the continental United States. Located off the coast of Beaufort, South Carolina, Morgan Island consists of 2,000 acres of pristine land, yet is wholly inaccessible due to the presence of 4,000 rhesus monkeys. You see, after the country of India decided to ban the export of research animals in 1979, the US government decided to take matters into their own hands, and this manifested itself in the creation of a 1,400-strong monkey colony on the uninhabited island. Ever since then, the amount of monkeys has grown in number, and they are all, to this day, still managed by the federal government. However, in order to keep their ecosystem safe, it is illegal for visitors to enter the island. Although if you're so inclined, it's legal to boat or kayak around it to get a view of the monkeys on shore. Number 11. The Elephant's Foot. Back in 1986, Chernobyl's reactor number 4 was the site of a seriously scary nuclear reactor meltdown. And while tours of the site have since been permitted, one thing that's impossible to do is to go and visit the Elephant's Foot. Located north of Ukraine's capital of Kyiv in the town of Pripyat, the area is essentially a ghost town, and while many parts are now off limits to visit, one place you can't venture down to is the resting place of the Elephant's Foot. Essentially, this is a large mass of extremely radioactive corium, and is part of a much larger mass that lies directly beneath reactor number 4. And while a few pictures of it have been taken, going for a walk down there to see it would almost certainly be deadly. That's because while just being in the same room as it would have a 50-50 chance of killing you in the span of 5 minutes, making it one of the last places that you would ever want to hang out. Number 10. Yulin Naval Base. The South China Sea has seen a lot of Chinese military activity in recent years, and the Yulin Naval Base is easily China's most important military asset in that region. Strategically located on Hainan Island in the northwest area of the South China Sea, this 25-square-kilometer base has some of the best geographical defenses on the planet, as it not only features a protected harbor, but also a mountain range to protect it on all sides. Due to this great geography, it was chosen as the primary storage facility for all of China's most advanced weaponry, including everything from its nuclear-powered submarines to its most powerful battleships. To top this off, Yulin is able to keep these military weapons out of sight thanks to the fact that it mainly exists underground, allowing all of this top-secret tech to remain hidden from the prying eyes of China's enemies. As such, as the tensions surrounding the South China Sea continue to heat up, I wouldn't be surprised if the Yulin naval base continues to grow in significance. Number 9. The Inner Crypt of the Mausoleum of the First Qin Emperor. When the first Qin Emperor died, he received an extremely cool burial. Constructed over 38 years, his burial complex was modeled on the Qin capital city of Xianyang, leading to it coming in at a circumference of 6.3 kilometers and being filled with statues of his soldiers, family members, servants, horses, and staff, all of which have been named the Terracotta Army. Now, when this army was discovered in 1974, a massive amount of information was learned about the emperor that was buried within the crypt. However, at the same time, a lot of valuable things were lost, as when the open air reacted with the paint of the terracotta soldiers, this paint quickly deteriorated, destroying what had otherwise been pristinely preserved statues. Therefore, the actual crypt where the emperor lies remains untouched to this day, with this apparently being the case because the Chinese government only wants to open it once it knows that it will be able to preserve everything inside of it properly. As such, there's absolutely no way for anyone to gain access to the inner crypt of the mausoleum of the first Qin emperor. Number 8. Fort Knox Bullion Depository. While it is possible to visit almost every federal building that is not a military installation, you're out of luck if you'd like to try to visit the United States' Bullion Depository. Located within the compound of Fort Knox, it's home to about 75 million troy ounces of gold, which composes about half of the United States' gold reserve. As you might expect, there is no real reason for the American government to go into the safe all that often, and as a result, the security at the Bullion Depository is very tight. Guarded by the U.S. Mint Police, there are multiple guard towers, fences, and undisclosed security features to stop you from getting in. However, even if you do find yourself inside, you'll have a tough time getting around, as almost nobody is familiar with its very complex layout, meaning that you'll be on your own. If that wasn't enough, the safe is extremely difficult to open, and believe it or not, no one person knows all the procedures necessary to open the vault. So as such, I'd say that the Fort Knox Bullion Depository is the dictionary definition of a closed-off facility. Number 7. Snake Island. Unless the prospect of being surrounded by venomous snakes sounds attractive to you, then I'd suggest staying far away from the Ilha de Camara Grande, better known as Snake Island. It's located off the coast of Sao Paulo, Brazil, and by most accounts home to between 1 to 5 snakes per square meter. Now, if these were regular little garter snakes, this wouldn't be too big of a problem. However, the species of snakes that happens to populate the island is none other than the golden lancehead. This is problematic because its incredibly venomous bite is strong enough to induce terrible symptoms such as blood in the vomit and urine, intestinal bleeding, kidney failure, hemorrhage in the brain, and severe necrosis of muscular tissue. And as such, it's widely considered to be one of the world's most venomous snakes. Yet despite these defense mechanisms, the golden lancehead is considered to be critically endangered. That's because it's only found on Snake Island, where it survives by preying on the migratory birds that stop there to rest. Ever since the island's one lighthouse was automated in the 1920s, no humans have lived on the island long term, and nowadays its surrounding waters are patrolled by the Brazilian Navy, who permit no one except small groups of scientists that enter the island for research purposes from time to time. However, given how deadly the island is, it's probably for the best that only trained professionals are allowed on it. Number 6. The Svalbard Global Seed Vault. While it may seem a bit ironic that the world's largest seed vault is located in an extremely cold location, this location actually makes perfect sense. Located high up north on the Norwegian island of Svalbard, the vault holds nearly 1 million seed samples from different species of plants, with these samples containing thousands of seeds each and being stored there by seed depositors from around the world. The idea here is that whenever a depositor's crops or plants are destroyed due to wars, acts of terrorism, or natural catastrophes, depositors can withdraw the seeds in a way similar to how someone would withdraw money from a bank account, allowing for food production to continue. In order to keep these seeds safe, the vault stores all samples in a frozen room that's located 120 meters deep into the rock. And in the case of rising outside temperatures, there is a climate control unit that can keep the vault at a freezing temperature. Due to it being made to be humanitarian in nature, the Norwegian government prioritizes seed deposits that are for agricultural purposes and that come from developing countries, making the vault an extremely important global service, with this being especially true since it would be far more difficult to run a similar seed vault in a less developed country. However, due to its importance, the global seed vault is extremely isolated and is very well secured. And while it is possible to go on organized tours that take you close to the entrance, going inside is absolutely prohibited. Number 5. Pine Gap. When it comes to military intelligence, Pine Gap is easily one of the United States' most valuable assets. Located smack dab in the middle of the Australian outback, it's controlled via a mutual agreement with Australia and is very secretive in more ways than one. Perhaps the first strange thing about the facility is its layout, which consists of not only a massive complex of building, but also of 38 radar dishes or radomes that are concealed underneath golf ball-like shells. As per the info from the Edward Snowden leak, these high-powered satellites' primary purpose is to collect data from all around the world and use it for both intelligence and military purposes. In all likelihood, it's this detecting capability that allows Pine Gap to pinpoint the locations of airstrikes, nuclear weapons, and other military and intelligence hubs. Now, in the past, the base was largely used for missile detection, with this being its primary use right through the Cold War. However, as the world began to become more advanced, it's taken on a more prominent role as a geolocational hotspot. Supposedly, the site has the ability to listen in on practically any phone call in any area of the world, while it's also been a command post for a number of satellite-related missions. Yet perhaps the most mysterious of all, it supposedly played a large role in U.S. drone strikes, with the site apparently having the capability to locate terrorists and alert the U.S. Air Force of their coordinates. As such, Pine Gap has become absolutely essential to maintaining the American stronghold on global security, and as a result, going anywhere near it is absolutely forbidden. Number 4. Kasputnyar. While Area 51 may be the most controversial military base in the United States, Kasputnyar is by all accounts its more sinister Russian equivalent. That's because after being built in the 1940s and becoming fully operational by about 1947, it was essentially ground zero for many of the Soviet Union's most dangerous missile and space-related tests. Now, it's located approximately 100 kilometers east of modern-day Volgograd, and while many specifics about it are unclear, if U.S. intelligence reports from the year 1960 are to be believed, it stretches for an area of about 3,600 square kilometers. When it was first founded, it was largely used in order to test improved versions of the German V-2 rockets from the Second World War. By the 1950s, it was being used as a launch facility for the Soviet Union space program. Today, the base is still shrouded in mystery. However, what is clear is that it's still being used to some capacity. Yet what these uses are is not so clear. You see, just like Area 51 in the United States, Kasputnyar has some serious rumored connections to aliens. That's because if the accounts of former employees are to be believed, the site was likely home to a collection of storage units that hold alien spacecraft and labs for conducting alien autopsies. And there's been some support for this conspiracy theory due to the fact that decades ago, U.S. intelligence indicated that there were bizarre geometric patterns and highly sophisticated radar facilities on site. However, because the actual facility is located about 400 meters beneath the surface, we may never know for sure what the base truly holds within those depths, and there is no way that the Russian military will allow you inside so you can figure it out. Number 3. Surtsey. While most islands on Earth have been around for millions if not billions of years, Surtsey Island stands apart for being younger than some of the people watching this video. Located off the coast of Iceland, Surtsey is just 59 years old, and it came into being thanks to a volcanic eruption about 130 meters below sea level. From there, it grew to its maximum size of about 2.5 square kilometers. However, thanks to erosion, its surface area is now closer to about 1.3 square kilometers. Now, while such a small island theoretically shouldn't be all that hard to explore, the Icelandic government has made sure it's nearly impossible to enter it by making it strictly off-limits to the public. This is because the island is essentially a massive science experiment to see how the island's ecosystem will form from scratch, and thus any human interference could easily mess with that process. Only scientists are currently allowed on the island, and their impact has been limited to one small research station at the base of an unconstructed lighthouse. These protections have allowed the island to thrive naturally, and as such it has organically developed its very own ecosystem consisting of plants, birds, insects, and seals. Yet that doesn't mean that the island hasn't been the recipient of some biological accidents. You see, the scientists on the island pose a very real threat to its pristine ecosystem due to the fact that they could accidentally carry seeds onto the island. As a result, the island's few researchers are screened for seeds before entering the island. However, this didn't stop a scientist from depositing some from inside of his body. That's because after eating tomatoes, he defecated. Yet because these feces weren't properly handled, a tomato plant sprung up on the island. And while it was promptly destroyed, it really rattled the scientist working on Surtsey. Due to this fragility, there's absolutely no way that a non-scientist will ever be allowed onto that island. Number 2. North Sentinel Island. While there are about 100 uncontacted or near uncontacted tribes in the world, none are quite as famous as the Sentinelese. Located on North Sentinel Island in the Bay of Bengal, they stand apart due to the fact that they have actively killed many of the people who have tried to enter the island. North Sentinel was first documented all the way back in 1771, when the British hydrographic survey vessel Diligent passed by the island. From then on out, a few British colonial administrators made limited contact with those islanders, bringing them gifts on sporadic occasions. However, these efforts were typically met with hostile responses, and thus visits did not continue after Indian independence. At this point, the Indian government allowed an Indian anthropologist by the name of Srinaknath Pandit and a group of his colleagues to make limited contact with the tribe, and they did this by consistently giving them gifts of coconuts, pots, and pans. Over time, the islanders went from meeting them with trained arrows and spears to meeting them without any weapons, marking a stark improvement in relations. However, in 1996, the Indian government suspended those visits. From then on out, the islanders became far more hostile, and be it the murder of 2 fishermen from a wrecked fishing boat in 2006 or the murder of an attempted entry by a missionary in 2018, in both cases, all who stepped foot on the island were promptly killed by the villagers. As a result, today it's illegal to enter within 9 kilometers of North Sentinel Island without special clearance, and this rule is actively enforced by the Indian Navy. This is largely to prevent foreigners from disrupting the islanders' way of life or spreading disease to them. And if by any chance someone does get onto the island, the Indian government does not charge the islanders with any crimes if they decide to murder you. Thus, while North Sentinel is nominally administered by the South Andaman Administrative District, the island is now largely left alone, and this is probably for the best. Number 1. Area 51. Of all the entries on this list, none are quite as famous as Area 51. After all, it's been the subject of countless conspiracy theories over the years, with many believing that it's perhaps the site of some real-life aliens. Now, these theories first began in the 1950s, when the United States government began using the Nevada-based compound to test out some of its newest aircraft. Due to both Area 51 and the surrounding testing area it encompasses being about the size of Connecticut, it gave testers a lot of land to work with. Although, as you might expect, suddenly having all sorts of new bombers and jet fighters flying around aroused many people's suspicions. After all, the aircraft often have very weird shapes that looked a lot like a UFO might. Therefore, rather than just tell people that the aircraft were not UFOs, the US government supposedly played along with these suspicions in order to distract from the real purpose of the base. What is the real purpose, though, you may ask? Well, unfortunately for us, this is classified information. However, what does seem to be apparent is that the base is still in use, and that while it essentially served as a secret air base throughout the Cold War, its use today is not exactly clear. And as an interesting side note, this is one of the few entries on this list that was almost invaded by civilians. You see, in July of 2019, more than 2 million people responded to a Facebook post asking people to storm Area 51. And while the whole thing was supposed to be a joke, the United States Air Force wasn't going to take any chances, threatening serious action if they came too close. However, due to the fact that almost no one actually took the Facebook post seriously, only about 1,500 to 3,000 people actually ended up showing up to rural Nevada, with only a handful actually making the foolish mistake of trying to enter the compound. As such, the security threat of this event ended up being a lot less serious than it could have been. Watch our binge-watching playlist if you'd like to watch all of our most popular top 15 videos. Grab a drink, grab a snack, and get ready to binge.